Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 1094 of the Juicebox Podcast. I'll be speaking with Kim today. She's 42 years old, a type 1, and a school teacher. Kim's got a number of things going on here. She's had gastric bypass surgery, which we speak about. Her family has a deep and rich history with autoimmune issues, and she's had 3 heart surgeries in total. There's more than that even, so I'm not even scratching the surface on who Kim is. Please don't forget that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. As the end of the year approaches quickly, I just want to take this moment to thank all of you for subscribing and following and supporting the Juicebox Podcast. It means the world to me, and I will absolutely be back for a 10th year of the podcast in 2024 because of the kind support that you all lend. If you're looking for community around type 1 diabetes, check out the Juicebox Podcast private Facebook group, Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes. But everybody is welcome. Type 1, Type 2, gestational, loved ones, it doesn't matter to me. If you're impacted by diabetes and you're looking for support, comfort, or community, check out Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. This is the meter that my daughter has on her person right now. It is incredibly accurate and waiting for you at contournext.com/juicebox. A huge thanks to a longtime sponsor, Touched by Type 1. Please check them out on Facebook, Instagram, and at touchedbytype1.org. If you're looking to support an organization that's supporting people with type 1 diabetes, check out Touched by Type 1.
Hi, my name is Kim. I'm a diabetic.
Nice. Perfect. How old are you?
I am almost 42 in a couple of weeks.
Oh, I'm 52 in a couple of weeks.
Are you a July birthday?
I am.
As am I. Were you born on the golden day of July 7th?
Is that the day you were born?
That's, yeah, of course.
Is that what made it the golden day?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I'm 7th child born on the 7th day of the 7th month. I mean, you can't get better than that.
Wow.
Except my sister had 2 babies on my birthday, 3 years apart, and one of them was born 07/07/07. So she one-ups me.
It feels like what you're explaining to me is that this thing that you thought was very important turns out to be very common.
Whoa, easy there. No, I have lured many people into magically having babies on my birthday with my magnetic pole of awesomeness. I'm like, you should also partake in the awesomeness of a July 7th birthday.
Kim, I don't think you should talk about childbirth and then say you have a magnetic hole, or what did you say?
Why did you have to make it weird? Why did you have to make it weird? Come on.
You said it. I didn't say it.
You have skewed everything.
all I did was listen to what you say and repeat it back to you. So,
in the weirdest way possible.
I mean, you said it. All right, so you're 42-ish. How old were you when you were diagnosed? Now, you had a misdiagnosis, is that right?
I did, yeah. So I was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic in December of 2019.
Okay.
And went in with my A1C was 14.8 when I went in. And I went in because I thought my sister had, so I was 38. I was 38 when I was diagnosed. And my sister, just older than me at 38, started losing weight. She was all shaky. It turns out she had Graves' disease. So my hair is falling out and I've lost 30 pounds without trying, which is surprising because I had a gastric bypass at 15. Like, weight has never been an easy thing for me. And I go in to get my thyroid tested because I'm like, I probably have Graves' disease as well. And my thyroid was completely normal. And my blood sugar, my fasting blood sugar, the nurse said to me, did you eat a donut before you came in?" She's like calling to give me test results. And I was like, ugh. Or she said, "Were you fasting?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "You didn't like eat a donut on the way?" And I was like, "No, I'm not dumb." Like I was like deeply offended that she would suggest. And she's like, "Because your glucose was a little elevated." And I'm like, "Well, like how high?" She's like, 375. And I'm like, "Okay, well, I know nothing." And so I Google it and everything says like immediate medical attention. I'm like, "Great, I'm gonna die immediately." And of course, when she called me to tell me this, I was eating homemade caramels, like just popping them one after another. So
Are you in the Midwest?
I am in
Upper?
Oregon, actually.
Oh,
I won't tell
okay.
you where, so no one can come and kill me.
Yes. Oh, you're the second person who said that in 2 weeks when I've been recording. They said I made an announcement. I said nobody go kill Dana. So-
Yes, I just listened to that episode this morning.
that's why you said it. Okay, I was like,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
don't come kill me.
Yeah, no, don't please leave Kim alone.
I also will not go look for Dana. She seems like a very nice person.
Okay, so wait a minute. I heard a lot. I need to pick through it. You had a
Okay.
gastric bypass when you were 15 years old.
I did. I was born with a congenital heart defect
Mm-hmm.
that they diagnosed at 2 months old, and then just was fat. I was just really fat I'm five, okay, I like to say 5'8". I'm really like 5'7.25", let's be honest. And at the time that I had gastric bypass, I weighed 270 pounds. I had done not Weight Watchers. I'd done Nutris. I'd done everything imaginable. I took FenFan when I was 12. I mean, like all the things, right? And nothing really worked. And I needed heart surgery because my blood pressure was really high. And so it's the only thing in my life I've ever been underweight for. My BMI was slightly lower than they wanted it to be, but they made an exception. And so when I was 15, which was the absolute youngest you could be to have gastric bypass, I had a gastric bypass done. And it wasn't laparoscopic at the time. It was in 1996. And so I have a scar from my sternum to my belly button.
Did it work?
Yeah, it really did.
How much?
When I say it worked, I mean that it gave me the ability to fight weight in a more normal way. Instead of 100 pounds at a time, it's 30 pounds at a time, like what I assume how everyone else is fighting weight. But I lost 100 pounds in about 9 months. My hair fell out a lot. I was certainly malnourished in a lot of ways just because, you can eat so little at first. It's like I would eat like 2 bites and I'd be like, "I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't." You have to sip. You can't. My stomach was 2 ounces. And so, but yeah, I mean, the lowest I weighed right after surgery was about 167.
ContourNext.com/juicebox. That's the link you'll use to find out more about the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. When you get there, there's a little bit at the top. You can click right on blood glucose monitoring. I'll do it with you. Go to meters, click on any of the meters. I'll click on the NextGen, and you're going to get more information. It's easy to use and highly accurate. SmartLight provides a simple understanding of your blood glucose levels. And of course, with second chance sampling technology, you can save money with fewer wasted test strips. As if all of that wasn't enough, the Contour NextGen also has a compatible app for an easy way to share and see your blood glucose results. ContourNext.com/juicebox. And if you scroll down at that link, you're going to see things like a buy now button. You could register your meter after you purchase it. Or what is this? Download a coupon. Oh, receive a free Contour NextGen blood glucose meter. Do tell. ContourNext.com/juicebox. Head over there now. Get the same accurate and reliable meter that we use.
And then the highest post-surgery, I fluctuated between like 170 and 200 for, I don't know, 20 years, 15 years. And then I started counting calories probably 6 or 7 years ago, and pretty regularly. And I found running. I started running, and those two things together just kind of led to a life where I was sitting in the low 160s for a long time, and then when I was diagnosed, it was like kind of all of a sudden that I gained a little bit of weight. So in August, I went to the cardiologist and I weighed like 185 in the afternoon. And when I went to the doctor in December, I weighed 152. So I'd lost 35 pounds without trying. I mean, just, eating everything in the world and always hungry, always tired, blood sugar through the roof. And then because I was misdiagnosed for a couple of years, I tried to control everything simply with my diet, and I stopped eating everything I liked. I'm like a carbivore. If it's not a carb, I really don't want to eat it. So I
Mm.
wasn't eating very much at all because I'd cut everything that brought me happiness out of my life.
Wow.
I mean, food wise.
Other,
Still my family, my kids, my husband, I love them, my job.
I didn't misunderstand that part. Don't worry. I cut everything I love out of my life. Food, basically, Scott. No, but everyone in your family struggle with weight, or are you like an anomaly?
I would say no. It's something that every single person in my family, like we just have crap genetics. I always joke, I'm the youngest of 7 kids. I always joke that I'm the genetic trash left over after the other 6 kids because I've got, a heart condition, diabetes. And my body's just crap. I'm like, thanks, mom and dad. Thanks for that. That was good of you.
It's what was left that they had to work
Yeah.
with.
Have you seen the movie Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny
Sure,
DeVito
of course.
from the 90s? Yeah. And he's like, I'm the genetic crap left after him. I'm like, I'm the
How you
genetic crap
feel?
left over after all the others.
Did your heart? I just have to ask. I don't think the timeline lines up the way you explained it, but is the fen have anything to do with the heart issue?
Nope.
No. Okay.
No. And I really didn't have any adverse effect. I lost like 30 pounds until I stopped taking it. And then I gained 30 pounds back.
What did it do for you? Do you remember?
Simply did not feel hungry,
Okay.
like at all, ever, at all. Like it was a struggle. I was counting calories just to make sure I got enough food in my body.
Yeah. Are you pissed that now the GLP-1s exist and you had to get cut open to have that feeling?
You know what? I am not. I can't imagine. I think about it now, like the choices, the medical choices my parents had to make. The year I had gastric bypass, I had an appendectomy in February. I had an angioplasty in April, and I had a gastric bypass in July.
Wow.
I mean, it was just like this crazy medical year for me, but it changed my life. So I can't imagine all of the heartache and I'm sure prayer and all of the things that went into it for them to make that choice for me.
Mhm.
I was on board because nothing worked. I mean, I tried hard at a lot of things and it was the only thing that worked. And then for a lot of years, I struggled with a lot of guilt, feeling like, oh, I took the easy way out until like 15 years ago, I was watching an episode of The Biggest Loser, which I love.
Mhm.
And a girl on the Biggest Loser was about my same age, and she'd had gastric bypass about my same time, and she weighed 300 pounds again, and I was sitting at like 180, and I was like, okay. What they told me when I had gastric bypass is that 80% of the people keep 80% of the weight off, and I sit very firmly in that category.
Mhm.
So it changed my life. I would do it again, even though I had a lot of complications since then because of it. So even with the complications.
You would still do it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a maybe an odd question. You have kids, right? You said.
I do. Yep.
So I always think that one day Kim Kardashian's children are going to grow up and go, "Hey, where's my big round ass? And how come my lips aren't full? Why don't I look
Right.
like this?"
Hmm.
Do you worry that, like, because you're thinner now,
Sure.
what if your kids follow in your footsteps? Like, what are you going to do for them?
So it's something that has already happened. We have both my kids have struggled one way or another. My daughter in particular, it's a powerful thing to say to a kid, look, I know exactly how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like my daughter's lost 60 pounds in the last year. She's done amazing things. I'm super proud of her
Wow.
to, taking some healthier steps. But at the hardest points, I'm like, yeah, I know what this is like. I know how it feels to be 15 and have, your life and be like this. So I think in a lot of respects, it is just because it's not like I'm like, oh, yes, I'm so hot now. It's
Mm.
not anything like that. Like, it's like, dude, and they see that I still work every day. I exercise regularly. I'm careful about what I eat. Like we just talk about the crappy genetics that I have now, the trash I have passed to them. You're welcome, children.
Yeah. How old is she now?
She'll be 16 this summer.
She'll be 16. Okay.
Mhm.
So now I'm putting myself in the position of the people listening, and
Sure.
I'm gonna ask, like, I mean, they're going to, like, some people are going to think you must be eating like Fritos with one hand and drinking Coke with another and snorting sugar. But
Nope.
is that's not the case, right?
No, I think, and for each person, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
What I can say about myself, I won't speak to my daughter because,
Yeah.
I am really open. She is less open. So,
Sure.
I'll speak to myself. For me, I was a frequent eater. I was always super active. We had a trampoline. I rode my bike all over town. Like the activity part of it, I wasn't super sedentary. I simply was just hungry a lot. And it wasn't like I was eating trash all the time. I just ate frequently. I was a grazer and a meal eater.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to dig into. Did you, if any of this sounds familiar, tell me. You will open your eyes in the morning and wonder immediately what you're going to eat.
Yes, but that is still how I live my life,
Okay.
simply because I love food.
Well, that's okay. But so then you decide what you're going to have for breakfast. You're already thinking about lunch?
It's been a lot of years now
Mm-hmm.
since but I mean, yeah, I live a very, even now, I mean, obviously differently because of diabetes, that it's a food-centric life. But
Right.
yeah, yeah. And I'm a good cook and a good baker. And so, yeah, I'm always thinking like, what is the next delicious thing we're going to eat?
Yeah. Didn't ever feel full?
I think about that. It's not that I didn't feel full, and it's true even today, is that I don't stay full for a long time.
Okay.
Like my husband will eat a big meal and he'll be like, I'm not eating for 4 more days,
Yeah.
like he's like, so he stays full forever. And me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like so full that I think I'm gonna die. And like an hour and a half later, I'm like, could eat, like,
Mm-hmm.
let's do this.
If somebody said, "Are you hungry?" would you respond, "I'm always hungry."
I usually say, I could eat.
I could eat. Okay. So the reason I bring it up is because I'm now, I'd have to dig through my box of empty Wegovy pens here, but I'm now just about 3 months into using Wegovy. So
And how are you liking it?
well, I like being thinner. I can tell you that much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just injected my 1 milligram, my last 1 milligram dose. So I move up next week on Tuesday. So I'm pretty much a week shy of 3 months. And I am 20 pounds lighter, maybe a little more. I look different. Like I'm starting to look at myself and think like, oh, this is what I thought I looked like.
Is this like the same thing as what you think you sound like? Are you photoshopping yourself in your brain?
I might have been, because I used to tell myself like, oh, I just need to lose 20 pounds. Then I lost 20 pounds. I was like, oh, I must have been wrong about that, because I didn't lose 20 pounds ago. All done. I lost 20 pounds and I went, uh-oh.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I didn't realize that part about the weight. I do want to say, in fairness to me and to give a pretty accurate picture, I'm one of those people you would categorize as carrying weight really well. Like you would not have looked at me and said, I mean, I'll just say, because I've said it on the podcast already, but like when I started Wegovy, I weighed 233.
Okay.
And
wait, how tall are you?
5'9". But you would have been hard pressed to peg me for more than about 180 pounds.
Okay.
It's just weird how, I don't know, how it's masked is the
Sure.
only, and why after losing 20 pounds, I looked and I was like, well, okay. I mean, it's a good start. But the point is this GLP-1, like, which would be Wegovy, Mounjaro, I think that might be, Ozempic, like these drugs, right? These new injectable ones. I physically can't eat very much food.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the closer to the injection day, like I'll inject today, I won't be able to eat a whole lot today. Tomorrow, the next day, 3-4 days, it'll be pretty much like that. As it tails off, the 5th, 6th day, I can eat a little more. Like I could, but I'm not hungry. So what I mean by that is I don't feel as full as quickly, but I'm just at this point now where I'm just not hungry.
Right.
And I didn't have all the draw to food that you've described or other people have described. My wife,
Sure.
my wife will come on here one day and talk about like the voice in her head that's like, eat, And by the way, she also has a thyroid issue. Do you?
I do not, but it is like my family is
Autoimmune central?
autoimmune. Yes.
Yeah.
Like I've got a couple brothers with ankylosing spondylitis. My dad has psoriasis. Type 2, type 2 is not autoimmune, but like type 2 is running rampant, which is why I originally was misdiagnosed.
Right.
Thyroid issues. My mom and my grandma and my aunt are hypothyroid. My sister's hyperthyroid. I mean, like, we're just a mess.
Yeah, isn't it interesting, too? I thought right away when you said it that you and your sister are similarly aged and around the same time developed an autoimmune disease.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, it felt like there was a countdown timer on both of you. Like,
it feels that way.
Yeah.
I wonder, the thing that, like, I have lots of questions about, how what triggered my diabetes, if you will, or how long I had high blood sugars and didn't know it, because I just think, was it slowly creeping up? Like it keeps me awake at night sometimes to think like, how much damage did I do to my body simply because I was unaware? And I mean, I ran a full marathon undiagnosed. Like a month before I was diagnosed, I ran a full marathon.
Well, listen, this is not scientific, but after you were diagnosed and went on insulin, did you gain a bunch of weight?
So I haven't gained weight. I didn't gain weight. So they put me on metformin immediately. And then I stopped eating like any carbs, and still my blood sugar was about 250 regularly.
Okay.
And then they put me on, I can't think of the name of it. It cost me, I learned a lot about advocating for myself medically when I went to the pharmacy and paid $1,000 for a drug. And I was just like, well, this is what the doctor said I needed. And so I just spent the money, and I went back and he was like, why did you do that? And I'm like, I know you said I needed this drug. And he's like, no, if it's ever that much. He's like, never. He actually left the room, went and called the rep immediately in the middle of my appointment. You told me it would be this much for my patients. It is not. Like, he was livid that that drug cost me as much as it did.
I'm hearing the Endocrine Society, I think that's what it's called, is starting to talk about metformin, like for a type 2 diagnosis, is not going to be an instant prescription anymore. I think they're going to start moving people towards these GLP-1 injections.
I think I could totally see how that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But he put me on a drug that was essentially Lantus and Victoza, like a combination drug. I can't remember what it's called now. Had a weird name.
Lantus and Victoza combo?
Yeah, it was.
I'll look it up.
I tried to look it up earlier. I just can't remember what. I tried to look it up in my prescription history, and then it had an issue because it was like a million years ago.
I don't see that it's. It was.
When I went off, Zoltify. That's what it was called.
Wow, look at
Zoltify?
You. Pulled that right out of your ass. Hold on a second.
Yeah, I did.
XULTOPHY?
Yes.
All right. Let's see what that
and
is.
It was, but what ended up happening was it was just too much insulin for me. So I was having lots of hypos.
Yeah.
And so eventually, but I still needed an upper dose. Like I take Victoza. So I'm on Semglee, Victoza, Lungev, and I still take metformin. So those are my 4 meds that I'm on.
You're on
And
Victoza?
yeah,
You should talk to them about a GLP, like one of the newer ones.
I agree. I totally agree. And I have an
Yeah.
appointment next month. Honestly, if I can say a couple of things about the podcast, because I don't want to run out of time and not have the opportunity to say the ways that it has just changed my life.
Hey, Kim,
Yeah,
before you do that, can I just say something stupid so I can put the ad here?
sure.
Okay. Exultify has a tagline. It says, "When it's time to intensify, think Exultify."
What in the world?
Whoever wrote that, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Intensify what?
I don't know.
Oh my
But I really didn't
gosh.
want to go too much farther without saying that
Yes.
that Zoltify is a type 2 medication. I didn't want people to get it confused.
Well,
But
and
but they're giving it to you.
yes. So
Okay.
the thing I want to say about the podcast is it gave me, so I went to the diabetes education course that was recommended by my GP. And it was, I mean, it was good in some respects, but like I already knew what a carb was. I know that everything in our body ultimately breaks down to glucose. So I understood that fat and protein, I didn't know it, but when they said fat and protein break down at different rates, it will cause a rise late, at different times. I was like, okay, that totally makes sense to me. When there are people in the class who are like, no, fat isn't fat, it's not glucose,
Yeah.
so so it was helpful in some respects, but a lot of it, like I already understood a lot of it. The podcast gave me information, knowledge that I needed so that when I went to my endocrinologist, I could communicate intelligently
Oh.
and ask the right questions. And my endocrinologist is amazing. I absolutely love him. And one of the main reasons is because he treats me like a partner in my care. I mean, I read on, all the diabetes Facebook pages and stuff about endos who are like, this is how I do it. What I said to him is I said, look, I know that my carb ratio is, 1 to 15. I said, I am almost never dosing that way. And the podcast gave me like the courage to dose appropriately for what I was eating and to try different things. Like I'm a rule follower, so I never would have broken out of that box of, I took the right amount of insulin. I waited this amount of time and I ate my bowl of Cheerios and went to 400, like I took the right amount, but
I want to ask you a question about that. So is what you're saying is that they had your ratio 1 to 15, but your ratio needs to be stronger than that?
yes.
Okay.
And so when I said my ratio needs to be stronger than that, and I said, I feel like I'm just barely having enough insulin by the time my prescription renews. Can you prescribe me more? And what he said was, about how much insulin do you use a day? Let's prescribe it that way. And I said, okay, the most I'm going to use in a day is, 50 units
Hmm.
probably. And he's like, okay, we'll prescribe 50 units a day. So instead of like fighting me on, well, Kim, you should, really eat fewer carbs, you're using less. He just was like, yes, you are managing. And I think probably if I had outlandish A1Cs and was trying to tell him how things were going, but and also you helped me advocate, podcast helped me advocate for myself to get some more testing and to get a CGM
Oh, good.
because I was diagnosed type 2 for 2 years. And my A1C originally fell from 14.8 to 6.8, I think is the lowest it was before I started fast acting, like Lumjev.
Oh, wow. That's
And
incredible. Hey, listen,
so I,
you don't have to stop yourself from saying I helped you. I you were like
you
the
helped me. You helped me, Scott. It was all you. None Jenny, just you.
Yeah, no, I'm just joking. I usually I try to like separate myself in my head from that. Probably sounds pompous to people, but I don't think of it as me. I think of it as the podcast. But when you at one point you said you helped me and then you stopped and you said the podcast helped me and I thought, "Oh, that felt good. I could take that a couple of times."
You can have it. You can have it. Because it just gave me courage to take more insulin. And if I go to 300, to not stay there.
Mhm.
and I'm still MDI, and I've talked to my doctor about doing a pump, and I I know that obviously, you know, many people have had lots of success of keeping A1C low, but he's like, you won't have as good a control with a pump as you have. MDI is kind of what he told me, because I have pretty tight control now. Like my last, I will call it unassisted A1C was 5.9. When I
Mhm.
say assisted, I have, because of the gastric bypass, I have to have iron infusions occasionally,
Mhm.
and because I just don't absorb iron well through my stomach anymore, and can become pretty anemic. Like my ferritin is like, has this huge range. It's like 32 to
400 or
250
yeah, or
is the
something like
normal
that.
range,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And mine was 2
yeah.
in December.
I think my lowest was 11.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
you feel like you're so tired. You feel like,
I just described it to somebody recently, and I said the closest I can get to explaining to you what it feels like when your ferritin is that low is I just felt like I was dying. Like
yeah,
I was
you,
actually like worried I was dying. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I'm like I don't know this feeling. It's very upsetting. I'm weak.
yeah.
I can't. I'm dizzy. Like this must be dying right here.
I apologize for laughing when you said that you felt like you were dying, and that your death is not funny to me, nor
Oh,
your feelings of death are not funny.
no, I just get.
Sorry, I
No,
laughed there.
I think you were just laughing because I deliver words in a fun way. That's all.
You really do.
Yeah,
You're
yeah, yeah.
very funny.
Of
Good
course.
job.
Thank you. I'm hilarious. That's the thing.
Well,
By the way, that's the
my
thing
husband,
I do online because it's so dry in writing.
yeah.
People will say something nice about me, and I'll go, "Oh yes." I won't even say yes. I just go, "I'm hilarious," and I put a period. And in my mind, I'm like, "That's so funny," and then I think everyone doesn't know that that's supposed to be funny, and then I find that funny. So
Yes, yes. I teach high school,
yeah,
and so I consistently am saying to kids, "That was a joke, guys. You guys, that was a joke. Come on,
yeah,
you guys.
yeah.
I'm really funny." And the kids that, they write in my yearbook at the end of the year, and they were like, "It's really funny when you think you're funny." Because I do find myself hilarious. My husband always says that I'm my own biggest fan. He's like, I've tried to be your biggest fan, Kim, but you are an even bigger fan of you than I am.
I once in a while, every couple weeks, I re-listen. I just pick out an episode randomly and listen to it to make sure it sounds the way I want it to sound.
Uh-huh.
And this morning, I listened to the diabetes myth about snake oil, and
Okay.
I have to admit, I laughed one time, and I thought it's probably wrong for me to laugh. It's something that I said, but
No, it is like, if you're not going to find you funny, really, who is?
I guess we'd be in
You
trouble
have a
then. Yeah.
responsibility to find
All right.
yourself funny.
So Kim,
The
let's make sure I
I was
understand this.
Yes.
The podcast, really me, but
Hmm.
the podcast is giving you the opportunity to learn things you wouldn't learn elsewise, otherwise, and the feeling like it's okay to go into a doctor's office and talk about it. But yet you tripped me up a minute ago. I don't agree with your doctor about a pump making your control worse. That's
I agree. So
ridiculous.
I think that, I don't know, I'm kind of scared of a pump, just because I've been MDI for, I've only been properly diagnosed for about, well, I guess it's coming up on 2 years. 2 years,
Hmm.
Halloween.
Yeah.
2 years on Halloween will be, and I'm comfortable MDI. And so, but I like when I listen, so I haven't listened to a ton of the pumping episodes, because, they don't apply to me.
Well, couple things. I don't care if you get a pump or not. That's my first thought.
Hmm.
The second thought is the pumping episodes do apply to you. They apply to everybody. It's just using
Sure.
it's just using insulin. And third, it doesn't make any sense that for a doctor to tell you that your control would get worse if you moved off of MDI. The only way I can wrap my head around that is if the doctor believes you're being over basaled, because that's what they do to MDI patients sometimes. They give them too much basal because they're afraid they're going to forget to bolus. And
Right.
maybe they just think that you're coming to this number through a little bit of luck. And if that's not the case, then I don't understand the statement about the pump.
I think what he's thinking is because my average glucose is below the control setting on the pump. Like, what is a pump? Like 120 is
No.
like,
Well, what?
I don't
No,
know because
not
I
at
don't
all.
have a pump.
You can set,
Um,
so, you mean like your target glucose?
no, like where it will automatically like
Oh, you're
the
not just
algorithm
talking about a
ones.
pump. You're talking about an algorithm.
Yeah, I guess
Okay.
that's what I'm
Okay.
thinking.
Okay. All right. 112.5 for Tandem, 110 for Omnipod 5. Loop is the do-it-yourself algorithm. Arden's target is
Right.
85 on Loop. I think, or 90 right now, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would absolutely if I decided like I wanted a G7 and I was like, "Hey, will you please write me a prescription for a G7
Yeah.
because that's what I want to do." And he was like, "Sure." And when I wanted a CGM, I said, "I think I would really like to know because I was finger sticking like, I don't know, 150 times a day. Not really, but it just I
Feels like it.
am very dedicated to making sure my care is good
Yeah.
because long term, I'm like, ugh, every time my blood sugar spikes, over 160, I'm sandblasting my insides. I don't want to do that. I am
Doesn't feel good either,
particularly
right? You don't feel
right. Well,
well either.
no, I feel fine. I
Oh,
could sit at 200 all day long and be perfectly happy. Like I physically feel almost no adverse effects. When I was like 400 all the time, yeah, I felt like crap. But
hmm.
at 200, I don't have a headache. I don't feel grumpy. I mean, I'm grumpy because I'm like, freaking, I totally screwed that bolus up or,
Hmm.
whatever thing that it's annoying to me.
Yeah.
But physically it's scary. I wish I felt worse when I was high, but I don't.
Really does illustrate the one of the main issues with the higher blood sugar because it is causing you physical harm, and
Right.
if you don't notice it, then why would you react to it?
Right. And because of the podcast, because of you, Scott,
Now we're getting to it.
I there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I switched my setting to be between to start my high alerts at 150 instead. If it went so 150 is my
Oh, good
my
for you.
set high.
Good for you. That's excellent. It's the easiest and simplest way to lower your variability in your A1C is to lower your higher alarm.
Yeah. And so is it always effective? Well, I was actually listening to Dana's episode this morning, and when you said that Arden, you rarely have arrow up or arrow down, I was like, well, someday, Scott, someday I'll not have arrows up or down, but I'm still in the land of just, trying to figure it out, really,
Yeah,
and
there's nothing
experimenting.
wrong
I
with
feel like I'm
that.
like a
I mean,
human petri dish.
yeah, two years into it as an adult, hey, you're doing terrific. Like, that's just, I mean, no straight up. I'm not over exaggerating. Like straight up arrow on a CGM, double up. I haven't seen a double arrow in forever, but a straight up arrow down or a straight down arrow, we don't get those. So
Right.
like, and that's just a function of balancing your insulin against the carbs. Well,
Sure.
but that
Sure.
takes time to figure out.
Well, and I think like one of the reasons I would love a pump, I think, is because I'm a teacher. And so when it comes to like getting ready for lunch, I'm not like, well, excuse me for a second, classroom full of 50 kids. I'm going to walk into the other room and shoot up, a little insulin. So
Would you feel differently about pre-bolusing for a meal in front of the class if it was with a pump, do you think?
I would have no problem with the pump because it'd just be like boop, boop. And I am not, I know some people feel shame with diabetes or they want to hide things, and I am simply not that person. Like we did a meme contest. I'm a choir teacher. We did a meme contest at the end of the year, and it was like this meme and it said Mrs. Kim, because you don't want to know my last name, trying to teach choir, and then in the back it's like this lurking figure, her low alarm. So it's like I tend to sit lower rather than higher because I would rather treat really quick than sit at 200.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's easy to just eat it. And then but consequently, my low alarm is going off, and then my students will say, "Are you trying to die?" And I was like, "Yeah," or "No," or "It's the first day of of my Dexcom, so it's all jacked, even it thinks I'm dying, but I'm not," or whatever thing. So if I had a pump, I would 100% just
Do that.
bolus swallow. Yeah.
Not that by the way, it's not that I don't understand. I just want to make sure I'm clearly getting your vibe. You don't want to inject something in front of the kids?
It's just that,
You think one of their parents would call?
well, here's what it is. I inject in my stomach because when I inject in my arms and my legs, I get these really big red welts.
Oh.
I don't get them on my stomach. I get them on my arms and legs, and I bruise really bad.
You don't
on my
want to
arms
pull
and
up your
legs.
shirt.
So, yeah, I don't want to be like whipping out my belly. And as previously stated, I had a gastric bypass. So I have an ample amount of extra skin to inject into. So, I don't want to whip out my belly and be like, shooting up. Although I'm never shy about needing to dose. If a kid walks into my office while I'm giving myself an injection, it does not faze me in the least. Like, it just is what it is.
Okay. Well, that's cool. No, I mean, I'm fairly respectful of, of 50 kids.
Well, and any kid who might be woozy about needles. You have a kid who has a vasovagal thing about needles and they go down, and you're like, crap.
It's easy to weed out the weak ones that way. That'd be great.
The other thing that I have loved about being really open about it is I have several type 1 students. And so it is one of those things where it is a bonding thing where we understand each other. And some of them, were diagnosed at 2, and some of them it's been, they're a year in or 2 years in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have you know that I always suggest your podcast, Scott.
Thank you.
I suggest you to people.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird if you say it that way. So go back to the podcast thing. I started getting uncomfortable with it a minute or two ago.
You know what? You can't have it both ways here. You either take the credit or you don't.
I am trying to have it both ways, and I feel like I'm accomplishing it. So,
but it's a cool thing to be able to. But of course, I worry about them. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. No,
I had a kid whose low alarm went off in class, and it went off, I think, 3 times. And I finally looked at her and I said, "Are you going to do something about that?" She's like, "I guess." Like, a little bitter.
I was planning on waiting till I was dizzy, but okay. Just hoping it wasn't going to happen. Yeah, I get that. All right. So, wow, this is a lot. You've been through a fair amount in your time.
Well, it's just kind of one of those weird things. My parents never treated my heart stuff like it was a big deal. Not that they didn't care for me. Like, I always had regular care. They were, I had heart surgery at 8 and again at 14. And then when I was 27 or 8. And so they have always been, very good about my care. Mm-hmm. But as one of 7 kids, we didn't make a big deal about it.
Probably didn't have the energy to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah, seriously. I think it was more that they didn't want me to freak out about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any adverse physical, like I never had any restrictions of what I could do, what I couldn't do. Like, I just lived a normal life, aside from all the heart surgeries. But
are there any follow-up surgeries needed for your heart, or do you feel done with that?
No. So I just went to the cardiologist last month, and it was kind of like the first time that, because it is a progressive, like, I'm on the train. I'm on the tracks. That's what the doctor said. You're on the tracks. Like, there's no getting off the tracks. This is from birth. So I have a bicuspid aortic valve, which means there's 2 flaps instead of 3 flaps on the valve. So it causes a heart murmur. And that valve is hardening over time because it's, kind of overworked and stuff. And then the ascending aorta is getting bigger because my descending aorta is like pinched and twisted. So I had 2 angioplasties to try and like spread that part out. And then they went in and put in a stent after that. But essentially, someday the valve will crap out and it'll send me into congestive heart failure and the ascending aorta expanding. So I'll need a valve replacement at the least and a whole new aorta at the most.
Did they give you a time frame for that?
The time frame for the valve has always been 20 years. When I was 20 years old, I went in, and this will probably last about 20 years. When I was 40, I went in, it's still looking pretty good, maybe another 20 years. So I have a hereditarily low heart rate, like really low.
Okay.
My resting heart rate is in the 40s most of the time, 40s, 50s. It has been as low as the 30s. If I'm in the hospital, they have to turn the monitor off to like the alarm off. Yeah, because it'll beep all the time. My personal theory that is none related to anything the doctor said is that my heart beats like half as many times as normal people's hearts. So maybe that's why it's lasting a little longer.
You're not using it up as quickly.
That's right. But it is like the last appointment I had, my aorta had grown, the ascending aorta had grown 50% faster than they expected it to.
Oh, so it might be and that's probably another reason why you're so careful about your blood sugar too.
Yes, because I already have all of these comorbidity factors.
Yeah.
It's like, have you seen The King of Queens?
Yes.
You ever seen that show? And, Kevin James is a heavy guy and Leah Remini's the skinny thing, but she smokes and they're meeting with their life insurance guy and they each have these bad habits and they're like trying to outdie one another. And so my husband and I always talk about I'm like, dude, I'm totally going to outdie you. Like I will die first. There's no two ways about it. I got like 85 things. I could be the cleanest living human on the planet. I'm still going to die before you. Eat another cheeseburger.
You have a very good attitude about all this.
Well, I feel like, what are my options? Can I control whether or not I have a heart condition, whether or not I have diabetes? I cannot. The only power that I have is to control how I react to it. And I can let it make me bitter and hardened and grumpy and hate everything, or I can let it make me be a kinder, more compassionate person. And the person I want to be is a kinder person. And so instead of, not to say, the first 2 years I went to the endocrinologist, I think I cried probably every other appointment just because it was hard. It's hard to know that for the rest of your life, you will never take a bite that you don't think about. Yeah. It's just always there. And so that sucks sometimes, but we just, try to, like when my low alarm goes off, my husband said one day, because I am an off the scale extrovert. I love center of attention is my jam. I think I'm very funny, similar to someone else I know or now know. And so one day my low alarm went off and my husband looked at me. He's like, "Oh, was it not about you for 5 minutes, Kim?" And so that's like the running joke in the house now. If my low alarm goes off, it's because it wasn't about me for a few minutes. We got to bring it back around to me.
Do you think that's a joke or do you think that it's overshadowing people's lives?
I absolutely think it's a joke. My husband, I was actually in Dana's episode today, I was listening and thinking about my husband doesn't follow my CGM. He doesn't follow me on my Dex. In fact, nobody does. I do all of my own management. I talk about diabetes all the time. In fact, I said, today's my episode that I'm recording. He's like, it's your favorite topic. So he is unendingly supportive and has listened to hours upon hours of diabetes, everything. He thinks I am the greatest thing in the world. He legitimately, I always joke that he thinks the sun shines out my butt. He just adores me in every way imaginable. And so it is, I'm sure sometimes he's like, oh my gosh, if I have to hear about diabetes again, rolling his eyes a little bit, but he is eternally kind and patient and
that's lovely.
Wonderful.
Very nice.
He's just the very best.
Maybe sunshine does come out of your butt and you just can't see it.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps. It wouldn't surprise me.
Don't let your kids hear this because they're going to wonder how he knows that it comes out of your butt. And it's
Okay.
hard to explain. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's difficult
Look,
to
I
explain.
did not want to be an After Dark episode
You're
here.
you're not an After Dark episode.
I
Please.
know.
Unless there's something you want to tell me, and then we could switch this over very quickly.
Zero things I want to tell you. I feel like this is getting surprisingly close to a butthole adjacent.
No. What a great title, though. I'm proud of myself about that title.
Oh my gosh. That was, I laughed out loud multiple times in that episode. I was just like, oh my gosh.
I was at a family gathering recently and people were talking about things they were proud of. And I said, I one time thought to call a podcast episode Butthole Adjacent. And I wasn't kidding.
Wait, are you going to call my episode Sun Shines Out My Butt?
No, of course not. It's not a real thing. It's a thing you made up.
Shh, whatever. You don't know.
It's not even real. It's not even real. Yeah, I don't know what to call yours.
You could simply say that I'm delightful. That's what I like to say.
Don't go fishing, Kim. That's it's ugly. You know what I mean? I did it already. We both can't do it. we both can't.
Dang it, you got to it first.
Oh, please! People are now laughing. They're like, he does it every time, and I don't do it every time. Sometimes
I would like to believe that, but it's just not coming to me.
I have to be honest. I think self-deprecating humor is the best humor. So
it is so funny.
Yeah,
100% of the time.
You're never going to know how serious or not serious I am about the things I say about myself. I will tell you this. Here's the thing I'm proud of. I know I have a reasonably comedic mind because you know how when people think of things and they seem off kilter, you're like, they must really think about that. You know what I mean? Like they joke about something horrible and you're like, they probably really think that. They probably are going to kill a hitchhiker. Like that kind of stuff. I think the things that pop into, I don't think, I know there are things that pop into my head that I string together and say that I have literally zero connection to. They just seem like the most bombastic, ridiculous thing to say in that moment.
Yep.
And so my wife used to be like, are you like thinking about that? And I'm like, no, not at all. I'm like, random stuff doesn't just pop into your head. She's like, no. I'm like, all right.
She's like, no, I'm not a freak, Scott.
And she goes, but you'll say it like we'll leave her mother's house and her mom will be like, what do you guys got planned for the rest of the day? And I'll say, I'll just very dryly, I'll say, oh, we have a little bonding time coming up. We're going to pick up a homeless person and murder them just to see what it feels like to kill a person. And then they're staring and I go, goodbye.
Now, some people would call that comedic timing and other people would call that being a sociopath.
Yeah, they're wrong about that.
I'm messing with you.
Now, if a bunch of homeless people start disappearing near my house.
There you go.
I don't think you shouldn't look into me. I'm just saying. Like really strange things pop into my head that I have no real association to. So
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that all of the murder you've spoken of today is not a real thing for you.
Yeah, murder's a new thing.
Yeah.
I'm just getting into it now. It hasn't really. I don't know where it's going to go yet. But seriously, like just even like dumb joking. I also don't get why you can't joke with people about things. Like I know it makes you uncomfortable. Like if I were to start talking about like, well, I can't even use any of the words.
I am on the edge of my seat. What is going to make me uncomfortable?
I can't use any of the words that just came into my head. So I'm going to bleep it all out. Okay, Kim?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
What came into my head to say was, I know it would make me uncomfortable. It would make you uncomfortable if I, like you said, your mom had 7 kids. So if I said something like, wow, your mom was a real... or something like that. Like, I know that would like make you incredibly uncomfortable because people don't like to talk about their parents like that for some reason. Let me just write down the time where I said that.
My mom more uncomfortable than me.
Well, you would think that all the she did would have made her uncomfortable, but so see, that's how I could do it if I wanted to.
Sure.
But I hold all that back because this podcast is about diabetes and helping people who can't get their ferritin up and their thyroid. And there is a family friend who said to me, like, I am not surprised you have a popular podcast. He goes, I am stunned about the topic, though.
What if your friend could pick? What do you think he would pick as your podcast topic?
Gosh, I assume something where I could say your mom's
yes.
and that those made her really sore in a delightful way where people were laughing about it.
Right?
I don't know.
I thought for sure it was going to be something murdery based on today's conversation.
I don't have any interest in that at all.
I'm glad.
Yeah, some people like true crime and things like that. Like, I have no thought. Not at all. Not at all.
I was thinking about I was like, oh, I do have a funny, like, when I was undiagnosed, like a pee story. Oh my gosh.
Well,
I'm
going to finish my thought. I would be more irreverent, and I would not be careful about language because I would prefer to curse a little more. I probably wouldn't do it much, but I'd love to be able to do it without bleeping it out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But it's funny. I was in the shower this morning and I thought, I wonder if I could do this the rest of my life. Like, I'm going to get older. Like, could I make a podcast as an older person? And I had this like fleeting thought of like having a podcast calling Described. And then I would just pick very like simple things and describe them. And I'm like, I don't think that's a podcast, but that's what popped into my head this morning. Like a blade of grass or grout in between the tile. I could just go to where those things were, set up a microphone, and then very meticulously describe what I was looking at. Maybe the episodes would be like 5 or 10 minutes long. And then I was like, that's probably not a good idea.
Well,
it's not. I know it's not, Kim. Like, it's okay. But that
sounds terrible. You should move on to the next idea.
Yeah, but it popped into my head and I was like, that's not a good idea at all. But I'm like, okay. Anyway, I have no idea. Like, I don't think
Do you think you'll be a lifelong podcaster? Like, is that what you're like? Not this podcast specifically, but like something else on the side.
I've been doing it for 9 straight years.
How many episodes do you record a week?
4 or 5.
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah, I do it every day.
Do you ever feel like you're going to like run out of people to talk to?
No.
Do you like, have there been some that you've interviewed somebody? Certainly not me, because I'm delightful.
Certainly.
But where you just interviewed somebody and you're like, that was like talking to like a paper bag, like just no personality, nothing.
I don't think of it that way. Like, there have been a couple of people who are not my cup of tea, and I just have the best conversation that I can find to have with them.
Okay.
And then of course their episode sits for a while before it gets edited and put online. And then no, they all do. I see where you thought I was joking, but when I go back and edit it, I do recall like, oh, I didn't enjoy this, and then there's this moment inside of me where I go, just like lose it, like delete it, and like email them, go, hey, I'm sorry, like, your file got corrupted. But
if I get an email tomorrow, so help me.
I'm going to send you that one just for fun. But I've never done that, and I'm glad I haven't ever done that, because those are some of the episodes I get the most mail about sometimes. So what I've learned that they're not my cup of tea, they're someone's cup of tea.
Sure.
So I just interview them the same way I would interview anyone. There are people who are not natural talkers. Like, I interviewed a guy a couple weeks ago. It was a great interview. But the truth is, if I didn't fill, it would have been 18 minutes long.
Right.
But what I've learned over time is, this might be a little bit too behind the scenes, but there are some people listening who really do just want to hear me talk. And there are some people listening it's true, right? And then there are some people listening who want to hear me talk to another person. And there's some people who are putting up with me because the things I get out of the people. And there are some people who just think there's great diabetes content in here. And they're like, oh, if I have to listen to this asshole to get the good diabetes content, I guess I will. And and that's all like, whatever, like it's all fine with me. But I used to get scared. I used to think like, oh, I'm going to talk too much in this one because they're not as talkative. But now I'm just like, well, that's what this one is. Like, it's okay.
Sure.
And you talked more than me in this one.
Did I now?
For sure.
I'm teasing you.
No, yeah, for sure. This one's going to be about like 60-40 you.
Okay.
I can tell.
I mean, I don't know. What is it usually? It's usually is there
60,
kind of a...
It's usually 60-40 me.
Oh, I up my game today. I am a talker, clearly.
Yeah. I realized there were times I didn't want to run you over because I didn't like the way it would feel for the flow of the conversation, but I did want to say something and I couldn't get in.
Oh, sorry.
Don't be sorry.
My mom always in the back of my head, because I'm so extroverted, in the back of my head is my mom saying to me, listen more than you talk, Kim. Ask more questions, Kim. Well, Kim, it's not all about you.
Well, forget the not all about you. I don't like it when people say that, by the way. When people say that to me, you know what I think privately in my head? Go fuck yourself. That's what I think in my head when people say that. But in my private life, I'm like, yeah, okay. You can talk more if you want. Sometimes I'm talking because no one else is talking. But here's a really here's a serious question. It's going to sound like it's not a serious question. Are you a little fat girl in your mind?
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm a fat boy in my mind.
Yeah, forever. And I had a friend the other day who's also a diabetic. And because of the podcast, I'm like, you should go back and get more testing done because my friend is... Anyway, I don't need to go into my friend's medical history, although it's fascinating. But they're a bigger person. And like I said, I love to bake like so much. And I'm not going to lie, I am an excellent baker. Like if I ever decided not to teach, I would open a bakery. But they were saying to their wife, like, I know you should never trust a skinny cook, but Kim defies this. And I was like, that's because I am fat in my heart. He's like, I knew you were going to say that.
Well, not only that.
Because yes, in my mind, it took me, so I had gastric bypass in 96 when I was 15. It took me probably 15 years before I didn't panic if I had to eat in like a buffet kind of setting, that I didn't think in my head, everybody is watching every bite I take.
Oh, okay.
15 years and I had been at a normal, quote unquote, normal weight for all of those 15 years. Maybe a little chubby, but not morbidly obese like I had been.
I feel like it's that like feeling of like, you seem different than other people. And then, although I grew up in a different time, like being like chubby was different when I was young. I don't know if it's if it's the same now or not, but you felt different enough and outside the norm enough that you were working harder to be accepted. And
I think, yes, I think that's true. And I think that that's probably why we are funny people, because I felt from the youngest age, I have to make people see past my body. Like I have to make them see me. And so I have always been the fat, funny girl. That's just, and now I'm just funny and with probably some body dysmorphia going on. So I have the opposite thing in pictures. Like in my mind, I'm really heavy and I'll see a picture of me and I'm like, whoa, like I am a lot thinner than I thought I was. And I'm not tiny. I'm about 167 pounds now. I'm not huge. I'm not tiny. But when I see pictures of myself, I'm like, oh, is that what I look like? Oh, weird. I felt like my belly stuck out way further than that, or, whatever.
No, I understand that. I'm not sure for myself. Like, I don't think I was trying to make people like me. But I did like what you said about like feeling like you're magnifying your personality, like make sure they see this part or so they don't notice the other part. And it's not crazy, by the way, because I knew people who were very athletic who also had a lot of thoughts, but people just thought of them as athletic people.
Sure.
So you do want to get in front of that. Like, it's almost like you're like, look, I know you look at me and I look chubby or whatever, but here are the thoughts in my head. But I am
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Please consider judging me on this instead.
My sixth grade teacher, my next door neighbor was like one of the cool kids in class. He was popular, and we rode the bus together, and we were great friends. We hung out all the time. We jump on my trampoline. We played basketball at his house, ride our bikes around, whatever. my sixth grade teacher said to my mom at parent teacher conferences, it's like the kids don't realize she's overweight because she hadn't seen a kid who was sick. And I weigh less now than I did in sixth grade. Like I weighed 202 pounds at the end of sixth grade and probably 5'6".
That's incredible.
Or 5'5".
Yeah.
So I have always not been a little bit overweight, but significantly overweight.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think she'd ever seen a student who wasn't an outcast because of that. And instead of being a shrinking violet and hoping no one would notice me, I was, the polar opposite.
I was
seeking all of the attention.
It's funny you said that because I was going to make the point, like, I was not a sad clown. Like, I just
Same.
was, like, I was a person people enjoyed and liked and felt confident. Just, it felt like I was in the wrong body for my personality. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's almost like the words and the thoughts coming out of me didn't fit what people would expect how I looked. And I don't know if they even, I have no idea if they thought that or not. And I don't even know how consciously I was aware of it as a younger person.
Right.
Like it's easy to think back on it and pretend you knew, but I don't really know. I have no idea. No idea really. Yeah. Anyway, it turns out I may just be GLP deficient, which is a thing they're starting to talk about now. So there's weight doctors. I don't have enough on it to talk thoughtfully about it yet, but they're starting to look into the idea if similarly to like thyroid situation, like, if you're hypothyroid, you are making, the hormone, but not picking it up well, or like, the way your body can't kind of produce or process iron well, like perhaps I just have like my body's making GLP, but it's not using it correctly. So by flooding it, by giving it extra, the same way when you take like your Tirosint or your Synthroid, like somebody takes that, you're kind of flooding your body with that thyroid hormone, and then your body's able to pick up enough of it to work normally from that. And so there are people thinking that might be the situation, because I have to tell you, as much as I'd like to say, I am eating slightly differently, like foods. Like I've incorporated a couple of other foods that are healthier than what I normally do. But overall, I am not eating that much differently than I was before. And I'm losing weight. So it almost feels like this thing was missing, and once you put it in, it was there. And you get the added benefit of it making you feel full, so you can't overeat. And and it does shut off your brain from thinking about food completely. That's for me.
When you eat, do you get the same? Are you a person who takes joy from eating?
I wasn't before, typically? But I'm really not now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder what it would be like, because I like everything about food is delightful to me. Like I like creating it. I like making it look pretty. I like eating it. And so I'm wondering what.
Yeah.
Does that change that for someone? It might ruin
that for you a little bit. So the girls were all, Arden's home from school. The girls were all here last night, and I got a FaceTime. They were like 15 feet from me, and I got a FaceTime. It's 9:30. I'm finishing editing a podcast episode. Can you make a sweet treat for us? And I was like, you're not even my daughter. I'm like, what do you want? And she goes, like, can I get like sugar cookies? And I said, I think I have all the ingredients for that. So I finished up here, put up an episode. I'm a little behind right now. I'm catching up from a trip. So I'm working like, I feel like I'm giving you the episodes as you're asking for them. So I need to get back ahead a little bit. Anyway, I go downstairs, I make cookies. I can tell, I look at the dough. The dough's perfect. I pinch it to try it. I eat it. It's good. It's what I think it's going to be. I bake the cookies. The girls come down and get cookies. And then at the end, I took a cookie and took a bite of it. And I'm chewing it. And I was like, I don't want this. So I just spit it in the trash. And, And then this morning I got up and I'm like, damn it. Like, I don't think I'm going to eat one of these cookies I made. So I took another bite and I was like, yeah, I don't want this.
Still not good.
Yeah. So it didn't, none of the like, I mean, I don't know what do cookies do in my brain? Soft, chewy, but crunchy, but sweet. That whole thing.
Yeah.
It didn't like make me anything.
Didn't hit any of those.
I didn't care. And then all I thought, then I just thought I was just going to sit in my stomach, and I was like, forget it. And that was it.
So to me, that would be a totally gray existence.
Couldn't you just
Like,
have more
oh,
sex or
the
something?
world is gray.
Yeah.
Wait, what'd you say?
Couldn't you just have more sex or something?
Spoken like a man.
I don't know. What if you started tightrope walking, or I don't know.
Okay, a tightrope. Oh my gosh, Scott.
What?
Come on. That is not a delicious cookie. What's wrong with you?
Well, no, because the cookie's not really delicious, is what I'm learning. It just gives you a jolt.
Ugh.
So you just need a jolt from somewhere else.
I will send you a different sugar cookie recipe, because what you have made is not. You are not doing it right.
Try riding a motorcycle with one eye closed. See if that does it for you. Run up to a bunch of cops yelling, "Ah!"
Yeah. I'm sure that will hit that dopamine release I need.
See if you can get some adrenaline somewhere. You know what I mean? Just start yelling, "I'm crazy," and run towards the cop. Wave your hands in the air. I bet you that'll get you all lit up for a while. I honestly, what it's telling me is that those ways that you contextualize, and most people contextualize food, they're not real. Like, oh, it's so good, or it tastes so great, or whatever. That's the dressing on, that's the window dressing on the dopamine hit. It's all it is. If you could put dopamine in a vape pen, I think you could feel the same way you feel as when you eat a cookie.
Wait, isn't that what meth is? Just kidding.
I don't know. Is it? You live in the Northwest.
I don't know. I have no idea. You're right. I live where everything is legal. Everything is legal. And it's terrible.
Oregon made everything legal, right?
They did.
Everything.
It is.
I wonder what the long-term impacts of that are. I bet you it'll end up being a net positive eventually.
No.
You don't think so?
No, because I live it every day.
What are you seeing?
I live seeing the impact of that not being. It is awful. I think it's awful. Because there is no, because people who are under the influence of XYZ whatever don't care for themselves or their environment in a way that you or I might, I can only speak for me. I am not under the influence of anything besides insulin.
Well,
but there are, lots of places in our town that aren't safe any longer, and the police can't do anything because it's not a crime to do drugs out in the open. It's not a crime to, So,
well, here's
I don't know.
Here's what I'm going to say. Not that I want to see somebody doing meth at the 7-Eleven, but
right.
The proponents of this idea are saying that things were so out of control in Oregon to begin with, that obviously what was being done was not helping anything. And that ratcheting it up more wasn't going to do anything else except make it more black market and underground and that kind of stuff. So you're not helping people with drug addiction. You're just saving yourself from seeing those people, I think, is the idea behind it. Portland saw a record 88 homicides in 2021, a 54.4% increase over 2020. Cops tie that to turf wars between drug gangs. Causality is ultimately unclear. Homicides increased at a greater rate, 58.3% from 2019 to 2020. So I think what they're saying is if you take away the illegal nature of it, you might fix other things. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a sociologist, so a person who pays attention to people and knows what they're doing, like that. But it's not worth not trying. And I'm happy if they're trying it in a state that I don't live in. So we'll see how it goes.
Right. Yes.
So we'll see how it goes.
It's easy to have an opinion when you're not living the day to day.
Are you personally seeing it?
So I would say what we have seen in our town is, and I'm not in Portland, but I have seen Portland's downtown is businesses are moving out. Portland is, in my opinion, a disaster. It is just, there is trash and there are tent cities. There are people just, crimes being committed all over the place that they simply are just not dealing with any longer.
Yeah.
So I'm not in Portland. What I see on the streets of my own town are big piles of trash, urine, feces in front of businesses, throw up, needles in parking lots, 2 blocks from a middle school.
Well, you can
So
start.
to me,
Yeah.
when you see things like this, and then, like our downtown streets are almost unusable. Our main bike paths that run along our beautiful river have so many homeless people. And I'm not saying every homeless person is addicted to drugs, or I'm not discounting people without homes as a general rule, certainly not. But what I have seen is a lot of people screaming at each other, and it's just.
Yeah, there's a U.S. News World Report article. It says that Oregon's idea is to take the money they were using for policing and move it into support and
Sure.
and rehab and stuff like that. Of course, unless some politician diverts that money to their lake house, and then maybe it won't happen.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
But
So
I don't know where that
so
money
far,
went. We were going to help those drug addicts with. Can't find
right.
it. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously a problem, and it's not.
Yeah.
And it seems like prior, what we were doing was hiding the problem. Then it became so overwhelming that you couldn't hide it anymore, which is what you're describing. Is it's bleeding out into the streets and to where people aren't used to seeing it. So I mean, something obviously has to be done.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, and if this works, I will be the first to say,
Cool.
I did not think this would work, and I'm wrong.
How long do you think it takes to know? A decade, probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope not to live in Oregon that long to find out.
Are you thinking of moving?
I don't know. Maybe someday.
Yeah.
Not anytime soon. I've got kids in high school. I have a son who just graduated and a daughter who will be a junior. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we have to give them a chance to use meth on the streets too.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, we want them to do it with zero consequences, so they can get nice and hooked and just, throw their whole lives away with no consequences. That's what I would really like for my children.
Do you think that if your kid was going to do meth, that a consequence would stop them?
That's true. Well, no, but a consequence might not, but jail might be a wake-up call for them.
I don't know. It doesn't seem to work. It seems to put them in a place where they can get better drugs.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never been to jail. Are you speaking from personal experience?
I mean, I've seen a couple TV shows. And,
sure.
It's a difficult. It's obviously not as cut and dry as anybody would want it to be.
Nope. And it's such a multifaceted, complex problem that I don't think any one solution will be the thing.
Yeah, no,
and I'm not saying I have any better ideas than
right. Yeah,
than
no,
what's
I understand.
Happening.
I mean, I use as an example, like if consequences were a deterrent, then like there'd be no teen pregnancy because teens would go, well, I'm not going to have sex because the consequences of that are making a baby that I'm not prepared to take care of. But that doesn't stop anybody. You know what I mean? And I don't think a kid like saying yes to a bump of coke at a party when they're 16 makes them think like, well, I'm obviously going to do this and then end up in jail because of my meth habit. Yeah,
Wait, you mean teenagers don't think things through?
Do you think anybody thinks things? Do you think anybody thinks things through? I like it when we say that, like about teenagers. Like I know a lot of adults, and they're not any more well thought out than anybody else is. So
I would hope as an adult that I think things through better than the teenagers I teach.
Nah, I don't know. I'll get you drunk at a party and offer you coke and see what happens. You might be like, I got a heart condition and diabetes, and let me see that. Yeah, let me see that.
You can't outdie me.
Yeah. All right, Kim, you're delightful. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know what we're gonna call this episode still. I'll figure it out when I edit it. But I do really appreciate you coming on and doing this with me. Thank you.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Hold on 1 second for me. A huge golden thanks to Kim for coming on the podcast today and telling her great story to us. And I want to thank you guys again for hanging with me through a 9th year of the Juicebox Podcast. Not just a 9th season, a 9th year. This year, we put up an episode every day, Monday through Friday. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. That's 240 episodes this year. You guys supported it. I love you. I don't know what else to say. I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Wait till you see what I have coming. Oh, you know what? On the last episode of the year, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's coming on January 1st. Having an easy-to-use and accurate blood glucose meter is just one click away. ContourNext.com/juicebox. That's right. Today's episode is sponsored by the Contour NextGen blood glucose meter.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean we've started. I just want to know if you have any questions or concerns or anything you want to ask me before we start.
I don't think so. It is very surreal that you sound just like yourself.
Oh, all right.
Having listened to the podcast, like you sound like the podcast. I'm fangirling a little bit right now. That's all.
Well, listen, now the podcast has begun because I want to keep this in so I can tell you this, right? Where were we? On Sunday, I was in the car with Arden and a friend of hers. And her friend is like, she calls me Scott. She goes, Scott, you should do voiceover work. I said,
wait, does she know that you have a podcast?
No, she does. But she's like, you should do voiceover work. And I was like, yes, you're right. Someone should just give me voiceover work. She's like, seriously, I'd like for you to be in a cartoon or something. I was like, I would 100% do that. Anyway, there's one 19-year-old girl in New Jersey who really believes that I should be getting voiceover work. Anyway, so
I hope that stream of income opens up for you.
That would be lovely. I hear it pays well. And then from there, we started talking about this whole idea about how I sound. And I told her, I was like, I sound in the podcast the way I sound in my head. But when I record myself on my phone, I don't sound the way I sound in my head.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because frequently when I hear a recording to myself, I'm like, oh, is that really how I sound? That's too bad.
Yeah. So I spent a little bit of time a couple of years ago, and I don't want you to think it's some great change, but I tuned my voice on the podcast to sound the way I think I sound.
I like it.
Yes.
I like it. Why not?
You're hearing me the way I hear me in my ears when I'm walking around.
Okay. Well, good job.
Thank you.
You've done a great job.
I don't know if everybody...
You sound like you.
But here, Kim, here's the freaky thing. What if that's not how I sound to other people in real life? It's just true. How I sound to myself.
Someday, if we ever meet in real life, I'll be like, Scott, you have a very skewed sense of how awesome you sound in real life.
Can you imagine if I was like, hey, Kim, what's up?
That would be awesome.
You're like, what do you think you sound like? Anyway, introduce yourself. Don't use your last name. We'll keep going.
Okay.